This is Hard Times Cancelled by John Stephenson, Part 3. Part 1 is down in the link below on Ian Kirkpatrick's page, Kirk Patty Cake. Please like and subscribe to her. She's a great author and a good woman. And also, Part 2 and 3 on my page. I'm going to have a playlist out later today. So, without any further ado, this is Part 3 Cancelled. It's one of the funnier parts. You'll know now that it's satire and ridiculousness is all this is. So, Part 3 Cancelled. 2 months later, May was brought in again on a prostitution charge. The arresting officer, Carly, pulled up in his two-tone Queen Vic Cotmobile. Carly got out the front and pulled May aggressively out of his rear. May thought, as Carly began forcing him to the front of the precinct building. Carly saw an animal scurry into a Milwaukee Street gutter. He thought it was a crab, but a cat was what run in after he reviewed his titty cam blurredly. "Sorry, May. I'm just doing my job. You got to appreciate that," said he. You digged. "Nah, calling it your job don't make it right, boss." May walked up the steps. "Say, what kind of lipstick is that?" Carly asked May. "Rover Rocket Red," May answered doggedly. Carly had forced him all the way up the steps at this point and paused before entering the building. "Make me look good," said Carly. "Sure, hun, I won't squirm any more than your girly little arms can handle," May assured. Carly sterned up his face, pursed and wet his lips, and with a sly and slight bow got into character. May and Carly entered the police station. May squirmed and gesticulated with her arms as much as she could without hurting Carly too much. "I got me a Maynard Sheffield here, boys," said Carly loudly. "My name is May and I'm a girl," said May, wiggling and moaning from side to side to make Carly feel dominant and tough. "Far from it, fag," said an officer with a styrofoam cup of coffee perched near his face, looking like a big snit. "You're just another queer that sucks cock and likes to be butt-fucked. What are you being booked on, prostitution? You mean people out there actually paid to have sex with this thing?" he said, pointing dramatically at the unusually dressed trans-loopy fruit prostitute in front of him, loud-talking like he was on a TV show or around his gay son. "You obviously didn't pay for that haircut, pig," she said. It wasn't the best one-liner, but at least he was bald, and she had to say something. "Easy with that dumb shit," Weaver said from around the corner. He walked in to take control of the situation. Knowing of the tragic events of the past month, and feeling somewhat guilty about the Milwaukee serial killer situation, his attitudes towards homos and queers had changed a bit. "Please, everyone, have some respect for Maynard, and also please have the respect he made a decision to be a homosexual female impersonator." "My name is May, and I'm not a female impersonator. I'm actually a girl," she shouted. "Jeez." May had thought a lot about whether she should say she was a girl or if she should say she was a woman or lady, but since girl signified gender, she always said she was a girl instead of the others. "Okay, May, so tell me, are you here today because you have bad taste in men, or is it the other way around?" May smirked and said nothing. That was very unusual for her, the silence, especially since her silence was a validation of Weaver's joke. Weaver thought about the joke he had just blurted out, but came to the conclusion that he was making fun of her illegal profession more than her perceived gender, so he reasoned it was okay. "Take off your boots, May," said Weaver. It wasn't inflected as a request or an order, but May heard her real first name, in a non-offensive tone even. "You know where you're going to be staying tonight." "I'll be at your brother's house and your wife will watch," slid May. Woof! How the hell did they come up with great content like that, Weaver thought, but his heart had warmed. He thought of his new decision to try to have some respect for the weird panty-wearing bozos ever since the Buckley butt incident. I mean she, he thought. He looked at her a bit harder. He does look like a lot like a girl. Well, maybe up until about 20 feet or so, he noped to himself. "Take off your shoes, May," he commanded politely. May was surprised and played it well. Still handcuffed, she said sweetly, "Dear, can you help me? I'm a little tied up right now," and pointed her man boot straight at the cop's mug. May was all transgender, but sometimes she acted a little drag queeny. She had the habit of either being completely hateful or lovingly fake. Weaver paused and frowned, reached out with both hands, and grabbed gingerly on both sides of May's boot and pulled. A gentle fragrance swilled his nose, that of lavender and fresh mayonnaise. It didn't smell at all like bad mixed with baby powder like the plus-size drag queens. The big girl, cross-dressing weirdos smelled. The boot slipped off. May's foot was now bare. All of a sudden, she jerked it, cocking it up in the air like a line dancer, and said, "Want to smell my pink panties?" Weaver looked at her junk and winced. "Ugh, oof," he vocalized. He was only a little mad, because it was a good way to make another guy look at her cock and balls. She giggled because she just tricked him into looking at a rather large and decent-looking, but otherwise completely useless penis. May's clientele was a little too impolite to give her a reach round, and few would even cup her very balls. Weaver liked her a bit more after this prank. He wasn't offended, and though he didn't have a brother, he had a lipstick lesbian sister, and his wife was twisted enough to want to watch. Knowing he had to appear like he had the situation under control, he looked at an officer and said like in the movies, "Take her away." "But sir, we can't take him to the women's prison," an officer protested. "Shut up, Sarge," said Weaver, again like in the movies. "Take his other boot off, officer," Weaver told the officer. The officer was a little mad at May and the non-Bapani situation, not for insulting his superior, because he was jealous that Weaver got to see May's tinkle not a twat and not him. So he grabbed May's man boot by its big black hoof handle and jerked it off. The offending officer wore a cologne that smelled half of musk and half of country floral daisy. The other officers didn't know the AC/DC perfume, but May did. The offensive-smelling officer was one of them thar disgusting half-a-faggots that were really for real faggots, but were pretending only to be damned old dirty bisexual bastards. Everyone hated the bisexual faggots most of all. Even the transgenders, bulldykes, faggots, dykes, and queers all hated every one of the bisexuals of the penis-gendered variety. The vagina-gendered bisexuals, everyone agreed, were pretty cool sometimes, especially in porn. Even the straight community, including a lot of grandmas, thought that female bisexuals were slightly okay. Even the faggotiest of faggots would let most female bisexuals watch them have sex, and some would even let them join in, especially if they promised to bring their big red leather strap-ons. May sniffed the florally musky smell of the half-fag, but kept cool like water. Most of all, May hated bisexuals, but wasn't going to say any verbal cuts that would out him. Since those types of digs were all she thought about, she kept her jokes to herself. Mug Tone wasn't around then and hadn't influenced people to tell everyone everything about everything. This was still the 80s, and for the most part, people kept their mouths shut or else. "Officer, give me the boot," Weaver barked. The officer was a little confused. Weaver was still holding onto the left one in his right hand and hadn't dropped that yet to catch something. "Throw me the shoe," Weaver repeated, not more forcefully, but in a vocal tone that would inflect why hadn't one done it yet. The officer threw the shoe. Weaver snatched his left hand out and caught it ninja quick-like style and set it beside him. Holding May's left boot waist level while he sat by its sole, Weaver flopped the floppy part of the boot on his lap, turning the heel right side up and upside down. He glanced down and froze in a trance. There on the heel of May's left boot was a telltale chip, the signature of the killer in the Buckley Butt incident. Weaver stood up rapidly and walked away with May's left boot tucked up in his chest like a lady labia licker's rugby ball. He grabbed up the other boot and waltzed forward, evidence in arm, left hand swinging as he walked to the chief's office. He walked past the chief's receptionist and straight to the chief's door. It was something that only a most trusted man could do, though of course he always had to knock. He knocked on the chief's door, unlike a cop. "Come on in it, him, her, them," the chief replied inwardly. Weaver walked to the chief's office, and without saying a thing, he gave the chief the boot. The chief took a look at the boot, recognized it as the oversized, kinky boot of the fruits, and knew what to expect. He turned it immediately on his heel and looked. He saw the chip. "So May was the one thing that killed him all along?" the chief pondered. "I'm sorry, but I don't ever want to know what happened to get Buckley laid upside down in the trash can." The chief thought of Buckley and his butt. The department looked solemn in respect for their dead officer, though most in jest referred to it secretly as the Buckley Butt incident. "It's okay to laugh about it," the chief grinned at Weaver. It was an inside joke that Weaver, Camphouse, Carley, and the chief and a few others said, because they said it so often to all the other officers every day. "It's okay to laugh about it," Weaver said. "But Buckley was one of our brethren," some would say. "Brett was a respectable fraternal brother of the police order," the pigs would protest. "Yup, Weaver, but it's funny," Weaver reached. "Buckley Butt. Don't you think it's funny and ironic?" "Nope," they'd say. "I'm not allowed to laugh at that," and forgot. "Trust me, you can laugh at that," said Weaver. "You'll never be able to get that image out of your heads, feller and fellettes, so you'd feel a whole lot better if you learned how to laugh at that. Though I understand nowadays it's popular to get mad and hop around like a whiny little faggot," faggoted Camphouse. "I need you to laugh at that so you can do your job better," pleaded the chief. It was hard not to resist spilling the beans, especially when the most trusted chuckled when thinking about a bulbous Buckley booty baton. The chief set his tone to goof the Buckley Butt incident again with Weaver. They inflected a highfalutin tone with pretentious vocabulary and went to town. The chief started it. "Buckley's bulbous buffalo butt burst forth bubbling blood, and also bulged out a bumpy-handled black baton. His booty burst forth copious amounts of the big old blue blood's red blood out of his rear end. Blood, I dare say, yes indeed, as well as what used to be the precinct's favorite old beat cop baton. Indeed, the chief agreed. They all looked at each other to get the timing right, and both said together, indeed, chirped with inflection and accent of a British high society queen. They loved playing that game. They both got serious skin. I'm kind of glad for him, the chief said, as he basked in the spectrum of it all. I don't ever want to know what happened. I'm glad May did it, not some crack-smoking meth dealer. They don't care about anybody. I was reading in Newsweek the other day. So what do you want me to do? Asked Weaver. He interrupted the chief on this rare occasion because he was a time guy and didn't want to get into the same tired old argument again. Here, the chief said, and opened up a cabinet behind him. He turned around and, in character again, said, here's a hefty cent sack for the boots that kicked the baton that bled, that looked like a little dick black man with a long, stretchy nutsack. Indeed, I say, my liege, Weaver said it as he did a queer Heil Hitler salute, but instead of saying Heal Hitler, he said Butt Buckley, like the unknowing officers always whined. 100% indeed, absolutely as well as definitely, said the chief indeededly. Indeed, Weaver doubly agreed. They had their fun, and as if planned, the chief broke out of his Oxford huff face, and Weaver looked less like a queer hailing a taxi. I know you don't want to think about all the details of the slaying, and even how it happened prior to the officer's death, but let's give May some honor and respect and think about him, Weaver said to the chief. Word is he was repeatedly raped until the age 15. She, corrected the chief appropriately. Weaver, I've been thinking about it. I just drafted a new department policy that requires the staff to honor the gender associations assigned by the gentlemen and gentlewomen of the thee, there, he, she, he, her, himathon. Drama time with Wilfs, directed the chief, pretending to be a traffic cop. May's boot controversy lights a spark in the lowliest of the high-heeled boys. Since the whiniest of them are mad, without understanding any logic, concepts, and reasons, it lets me know it's time to release the Momo. Did you add or else to Momo's memo? Asked Weaver. No, this gets an or else, directed the chief. Okay, just wanted me to clarify, clarified Weaver. As a matter of fact, on the way to the incinerator with this bag and these two boots, hand this manuscript to the receptionist and tell her to type it and immediately hand-deliver it so everyone understands how important it needs to be said to the peoples. And what about the guy that comes in here and is always saying he's a spatula, with pronouns of flip, flap, and flop? Weaver asked flatly. Well, he'll have a long enough time to think about that big mistake when he's TDO'd in an insane asylum drooling oatmeal on a white cot for a while, said the chief dumbly. Okay, said Weaver. About May again. If I had her past, I think I'd be all kinds of fucked up in the head, too. Plus, when you name a person Maynard, you're probably going to be a tool. We can at least respect her wishes and call her she, her, ma'am. Maybe if she behaves herself, we can slip in a woman, or on special occasions, a lady or a miss. No, don't call him miss, remembered the chief. Her, reminded Weaver. Damn it, yelled the chief. He was really trying. I hope these female impersonators, drag queens, said Weaver. I don't think they like being called that, said the chief. Nope. But nobody will ever quit calling them weirdos drag queens, Weaver duly noted. Weaver could see the value of those queer beaus. He heard how popular their shows were on the Haven on Sundays. He'd seen some of them. A few maybe he'd butt fuck in a restaurant bathroom stall if he were drunk enough and had smoked too much meth. It's hard to take a drag queen seriously. Hell, the most popular one at this gay bar's name is Shirley E. Lopatoff. I want to make sure that I call them what they want to be called so they don't get offended. They might become empowered by their offendedness. Please don't, pleaded the chief. You should probably call them transsexual, Weaver. Is that okay to say now? I think. Either that or transvestitity, Weaver. I thought you can't say that anymore, warned the chief, and stomped his foot around like a wolf. Oh, who the fuck knows? It changes every 4 or 5 goddamn years. All I was saying, said the chief, choking on all of the acceptance pushed down his throat, and of how things seemed to be going too far, too fast, in a place in which we had no familiarity to make any judgments for himself. He was a police chief, and didn't just blindly listen when people said, you better do this, you better do that, without having thought about it first and fully understand the situation. He was the one that told people what to do. That was what he got paid to do as a government official. Damn it, man, he thought. He hated to even think about it. I sure hope these people have some patience and are kind with me while I learn. I also hope they know my heart, he felt. How horrifying if they get too offended by something I do or say and try to have me fired, the chief said to Weaver. I don't mean to offend any of the faggots and queers, even the whiniest and the faggotiest of them, or even the clit lickers, the twat fiddlers, and or the cunt monkeys, said the chief. I know, said Weaver. I know, said the chief. They both knew the timing of this one, and it was fun. They looked at each other, breathed in quickly, and said, I know, and inflected like for real, and danced a short, goofy, gay jig like a schooling little cheerleader. What I was saying was, returned the chief again, I hope they don't get too offended. They can all be whiny little faggots when they want to be. Sometimes even maggot faggots, I feel. Let's hope no one ever makes them feel like they need to be, or it's ever okay for them to be so damn blasty, whiny, and faggoty. Loudly, he said, inflected like a grandma. Nope, said Weaver. And what happens when they get mad? The chief loved the holy hand grenade shtick the trusted did and was ready. They get worse, was the chief's answer. And what makes them worse? The chief continued potently in the prov. Drama, Weaver acted. I hope the world doesn't start to love and feed their drama. I think we're safe, said the chief, and grabbed a CD radio he had pinned at his chest and stuck it in his face and stared at it, head tilted, and drooled until he should have crashed in the ditch distractedly. Grinning in place because he had just made another very clever trance joke. The chief shook it off and slapped out of it. What I was going to say before I was so rudely corrected, he observed. May says that the female impersonators, or imposters as she calls them, have ruined the once great pronoun miss with all of they, her, girly gay names. The whole situation is strange. You know, May might not be the only person in the world that killed a police officer and got away with it, but she's definitely the most epic ninja trans prostitute ever to wield a big black dildo. Still a little playful, the chief handed Weaver a black bag full of shredded paper. Put those killer-looking boots in here and take them to yon hither basement dungeon to burn. Weaver took the black trash bag and placed the boots in. It's a shame, winked Weaver. They're made of some good fake leather and probably cost May the monetary equivalent of 3 butt fucks and 2 nollywoppers. They would be sorely missed by May, even though she was a true power bottom and didn't often get sore. Walking out of the chief's office and down to the basement to the police incinerator, Weaver started to think about the aspects of the whole situation. He took the steps instead of the elevator to avoid being seen by too many people. The janitor was sitting in the front of the door near the incinerator, on an uncomfortable-looking, dark, bile-green 70s chair. Hi, Steve, said Weaver as he walked past Steve and into the incinerator room. Sup, said Steve. He was black. Weaver stood in front of the incinerator. He had a window door that would open when it was burning. Weaver dropped the plastic bag on the floor and pulled his sleeve over his palms and up his fingertips. With his hand now protected, he cupped the cold end of the handle in the door to his face, pulled it down, and yanked the window open. The fire was audible but not yet blazing. He lifted the bag up and held it in both hands in front of the stove. He thought of something to do or say. Then he thought, pray. Sure, good idea. About as hard as he thought he could, he thought of nothing he necessarily needed to pray about. Then he thought, thankfulness. He tried to pray a prayer of thankfulness, glad everything was going to get taken care of in a fire in the basement of a police station. Everything was going to get wrapped up once he threw this bag in the fire. He thought of Buckley and how he was burning in hell now for killing all those poor gay and transgender people. And in his best cop character act, cop knocked and banged real hard and furious on the police station incinerator door. Buckley butt. Hey, Buckley butt. Meet big black bag of boots. Boots, meet Buckley butt baton. Oh, I hear you've already met. Good. Weaver jumped up 3 inches in the air and with all his might tried to dunk the bag through the furnace hole. Weaver was a white man that can't jump. There's always a second try, he said, and stuffed it in thoroughly. He walked out of the incinerator room, past Steve. Bye, Steve, he said. Yo, said Steve, acting like Weaver shouldn't have spoken to him. Steve was black, but was a wannabe Negro, or as they still say these days, Weegro. Weaver made his way all the way up the steps and into the wild blue streets of Milwaukee to grab a break and a cup of coffee. Mundo's was the closest place, as he wanted to get back to talk to May. He had been thinking a lot about her since he first had a look at them kinky boots and her big blue eyes. He went up to the Mundo's cashierista and ordered a coffee. He was a nice enough feller with unkempt hair, just like himself. What will you have? Asked the cashierista. Black coffee, no sugar, no cream, said Weaver. That's the kind of man that I need, said the cashier queen. He was a nice enough gay, and Weaver could tell he was smart. Say, said the barista sissy as he stared at Weaver's hair, you have the same big gay superpower as me. It's a pretty cool one, isn't it? Okay now, said Weaver, who acted extremely offended by the fact anyone would think he was a male who had sex with another male. He was only buying coffee trying to have a peaceful day and didn't want to even think about any gay, homosexual, or gender shit. I'm not gay. I don't have any superpowers, and maybe I don't want to know, but now I have to ask. What is a big gay superpower? Weaver didn't know or understand gay culture and was very thankful for it. When you are born, God gives you a gay superpower, and it is good. Whosoever useth the superpower, don't, said Weaver, ever go there with a joke. They will all hate you if you go there with a joke. You ever been hated by a Pharisee? It's not fun. Man, some of them Christians that follow the commandments of Christ, including the greatest commandment, sure do like to hate on people, especially the fakest of them. The cashierista nodded. You shall know them by their fruits, and I am a superfruit, said the barista Poof, though he didn't mean fruit like a faggot, except the superfruit part. He liked goofing like this, but wanted so bad to explain the gay superpower. I could take a shower and go to bed with a wet-ass head and wake up looking fabulous, the gay guy spurted. Aren't you the same way? No, I put gel on my head and mess it all up and leave it, splooged Weaver. Then why are you trying to look like a fag? Floofed the restaurant worker. Weaver was extremely offended by this statement, but as an adult, didn't say anything or get too worked up. Maybe he didn't want to defend me, he murked. Unfortunately, he knew what a gay superpower was now and wanted to forget all about it rather quickly. How dare he say that to him? Weaver's mom used to always say that he styled his hair all gay, but she was mentally ill and lied. He didn't sit down a day in Mundo's to have his cup of coffee because there's a man sitting in the corner of the room, staring at him like an acrid goat in a wannabe gay superpower movie. He walked outside and instantly was made to feel bad. He knew what he had to do. He scurried back into the queer, corporate, frappa-crappa coffee shop and went back and talked to the barista Nance. I'm sorry about how I was offended by what you said, Weaver whispered. I try to be an adult. I'm sorry if I got offended, because most of the time if I get offended, it's all my fault. I'm trying to grow up, because you don't get thick skin without being hurt, he 21 piloted. It's okay. I wanted you to be offended, stooped the Cashirioni. Well, okay, good then. I don't want to have to waste my time with you anymore then. Good day, sir, humphed Weaver. You too, the barista sissy said, chimed like a Tinkerbell. I have one more question before I go, Weaver announced. Shoot, said the Poof, as he rolled his big doe eyes. He was annoyed now and just wanted the policeman to go away. How come when gay people see someone they think is gay and say they're gay, it's gaydar, and everyone laughs, pats you on the back and squeals with you, even if you're right or not? But when I assume someone's gay, I'm stereotyping, I am vilified, and everyone squawks and is taken aback and is mad. The cashier queer really wanted the pig out of his face by now, so instead, he answered them by flicking his eyebrows and eyes towards the door. Weaver turned around. The goat boy in the corner, with his big bald head and big bushy goatee, was still staring, so Weaver left. Military facial, he thought dumbly. Weaver couldn't get the thought of May out of his head. That was an extremely gangsta of a thing to do for a female impersonator, especially the part with the baton. The chief might not want to think about what happened in the alley that night, but Weaver wondered ponderingly. He thought about the things that might could have happened. Did Buckley strangle or hit May? Did he rape her? How the hell does such a fierce female trapped inside a small but muscular male body overtake a man like Buckley, who had some training and was physically stronger than she? Weaver had been a police officer more than 20 years. He'd seen a lot, done a lot, and wished he could forget a lot more. The police department wasn't perfect, but he loved helping people, and loved it more when the police got it right by really getting it right. Walking back to the police station, he noticed the murmurs. Everyone was talking about Momo's memo, whining exceedingly. Wolves are so stupid, Weaver seethed as he vowed to semi-troll them lovingly. He rolled his eyes and walked into a medium-sized interrogation room and shut the door behind him, alone. This is some left-field bullshit, he mumbled to himself. He admitted that he had no clue what goes on in the noggin of a Nancy boy, and never wanted to know. Frankly, if the unfortunate Buckley Butt incident hadn't happened, he would have never thought about being nice to the Nancys. He thought about the James Baldwin quote that Mundo's had on the blackboard. They let the cashier creams write little handwritten sandwich quotes on a chalkboard that Mundo's corporate bought to look like they were cool like mom and pop coffee shops. It was a quote about one's character and the importance of being patient and letting time and circumstances mold and shape you. I am what time, circumstance, and history have made of me, certainly, but I am also much more than that. Weaver loved literature and James Baldwin, a black novelist and short story author, who was also a homosexual. Weaver thought about May and her horrible past. He began to feel pity, compassion, and understanding. He vowed it was the least of what he could do, always and forever, to be respectful as he possibly could. Understanding was going to be pretty hard, because the topic was as confusing as it never was interesting. There were a lot of things about the gender topic he didn't want to understand, or moreover didn't want to be forced to know about. Social norms were being shit down his neck left and right. When he was forced to do or say things, he got mad. Now it was like he was forced to think a certain way, as well as forced to pretend to understand. He didn't like to be forced to do anything. Nevertheless, he was going to train himself to adhere to the new gender policy of the Milwaukee Police Department. Are you a girl? Yes, girl. Are you a boy? Yes, boy. His sister had a baby boy over a year and a half ago. She and her husband were going to wait till the baby was 2 before they cut his hair. Though most of the time the child wore blue pajamas, people misgendered him because of the hair. Now, when they went up to someone they didn't know, they were quick to tell, "My baby child's born a boy, identified as a boy." Nobody ever called him or her after that. It was not good manners. The same should go with transsexuals, he figured and shrugged. He walked out of the room and into the holding area where the cells were. He waddled stiffly, never swaying his hips one bit. He walked to May's cell. On the door was a placard with May's name on it. Maynard Sheffield, it read. It was the 80s, and he didn't have to look far for a fresh jar of whiteout. He took his left hand and rubbed out May's nard out in the hallway. He looked to his left, he looked to his right, making sure there was no one there to see him doing the deed. He started rubbing it out faster and faster. He was breathing deeply, heavily, and finished rubbing out May's nard with a few deep, broad, groaning strokes. "Ah," Weaver said, thoroughly satisfied. He rested his whiteout applicator by his right side. A couple of dribs drooled off and solidified on the hallway towel. He fumbled for his keys on the far side of his belt. He thought about what he was going to say to May once he walked in her holding cell. Compassion, caring, and understanding wasn't 100% in him, but Weaver was absolutely genuine. May was still a hardhead, a hard case, and a nut job, with a hot temper and a flappy mouth. A lot of people were mad at some of the things she did in the past and some of the ways she still was, but she had a heart and an emotional intensity that could offer up some very powerful love or hate. Love her or hate her. She was always exciting and or fun to watch, shaking her ass in the streets, not giving a fuck at all. Meanwhile, Carly, who had received the hand-delivered message, was at the chief's door with Momo memo in hand, shaking slightly. He knocked on the door. Come on in," said the chief in a sort of goofy, bloopy way. It was okay. The nasty fart he cut in his office had actually subsided. He had sniffed it and enjoyed it for over an hour and a half, but now it was sadly gone. "Chief," said Carly, holding the memo aloft triumphantly. He had a clever nose and noticed. "Gosh, Chief, never eat Takis from the El Salvadorian food cart forever again." Carly gathered himself away from the distraction. "I have to tell you, Chief, I love you, but I'm never going to be in love with you." The chief looked very confused. "What I mean is," he was shaking so hard that the gender memo was making flapping noises. Carly calmed down. "What I mean is," he said passionately and slowly, "is that I'm Carly, but it's really spelled with an I and an E, and also with a C. Also that, even though I was born with a penis, love my penis, honor my penis, and still have my penis, I'm really a girl with a pretty nice penis." The chief's mind was sweating and stewing at this point. He had no clue what was going on. He looked at the calendar and wished he was dead. The department always had nice calendars because in them they used good art and not Norman Rockwell's. Carly waited for the chief to say something before she continued on. He didn't. She continued on. "I just wanted to say, I'm so proud of you. How does it feel to be the first precinct of all of America with a gender policy, making all the officers respect everyone's gender identifications?" The chief was nervous and wanted to go crawl inside of a warm vagina and suck his thumb, but mustered the courage to speak up. "This piece is not about making anyone do or anything, except strongly suggest that people be nice to each other. We're not going to force anyone to do or say or think anything. If we were to force anyone to do anything, we'd try to force all folks to respect each other. There's also a strong suggestion that people be nice. That includes being respectful and nice to transsexuals." "Chief," said Carly, "I prefer you use the word transgender." "Heavens to Betsy," groaned the chief. "Damn it, Carly," said the chief again. "First is female impersonator, then transsexual, cross-dresser, transvestite, and now transgendered. Why the hell don't you people make up your goddamn minds?" "In our proud history, that wasn't the order of what them called us, even us and them," he floated pinkishly. "See," said the chief, "that's exactly why so many people are having problems. We don't know your history, your past, your present, and we don't want to know. I never want to hear about how you tuck your penises in your panties, fold and make it work look like a female camel toe. Spare me all the crazy details. If things get any crazier in this world, Dr. Seuss books will be banned from libraries, and drag queens will be encouraged to go to them and read books about moo-moos and tutus to toddlers. I get it. Kids nowadays are told what is and isn't funny. I at least hope their moms don't make them not laugh at a drag queen. And peoples, please and also, if you get offended, be offended. You have the right to be offended. Anything you do or say can be used against you in the courting loving drama. The police department in this world has no room for manufactured events and fake plastic emotion trees. Be cool and be a Radiohead. He got up and got out the green plastic watering can to wet his lips. If you find yourself getting full of yourself and start flapping your bitch lip, shut the fuck up and go home and think about it and come back the next day before I beat your faggot ass, said the chief, looking worn out. I love you, Chief, Carly swooned. I love you too, girl, winced the chief. This is going to be real hard to get used to, if he could even get used to it. Now get out of my face and out of my office, bitch, the chief said, but needed clarification. May I call you bitch? Asked the chief politely. Absolutely, definitely, beamed Carly. Good. That may be the one thing that saves this whole thing. Now get the fuck out of my office before I tell your boyfriend you suck my dick. But I have a girlfriend, Carly said plainly. I'm a lesbian with a pretty nice penis. Oh my God, said the chief as his lips were flaming. This is going to be a very long, many years, and I can't believe I actually have to put up with all this mess. The chief was upset at the world, but decided that laughing about it and its wilfs was the best way to deal. He looked up at the calendar nervously. Above the numbered day grid was a fantasy painting of a flower on the hollow moon. Then he took the memo from Carly's tender shaking fingers, went over and opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Then, without anyone ever understanding why, files after chat. Weaver pushed the oddly shaped key into cellmate's hole, turned it, and opened the cell door. May was sitting down on a chair pulled in the middle of the room, with her arms behind her back, cuffed, leaning forward, looking uncomfortable. Weaver fumbled through the key ring in his hand as he thumbed the handcuff key. He slid it between his two fingers, sidestepped, and stooping over it to unhandcuff May. She pulled her hands in front of her and rubbed her wrists, remaining seated. May, Weaver began, you're a good woman, but you're almost 40 years old. May was puzzled. She stood up proud. Woman? May? She thought he remembered Weaver saying her to her, some of the officers earlier. You have the other half of your life to look forward to. Why do you still live the life of criminal prostitution, defiling your body with strangers who don't give a fuck about you? I see how you care about the other people in your community. Why don't you care about yourself? May was a little weirded out. This is the first time any of the other officers acted like they had some type of respect for her. She looked at the officer hard. She searched his soul, trying to see if some small facial gesture would clue her in on how he really felt. Weaver looked at May, smiling a smile of genuine friendship. Weaver looked at the grizzled, tender face with love. She was very strong. Her unkempt hair and snarl made her look like the gangsta he and only a few he-she's knew. Then, while smiling and looking at her, Weaver's thoughts returned to Buckley Butt, and how Brett looked like he was ready for one of his bottom buddies to come and join him in for the wily pleasures of a double-sided dildo. He turned red and began to shake and started giggling. May was furious. She knew Weaver was trolling her the whole time. She shuddered and got deeply offended, turning almost purple with redness. Swelled with the power of no recent deaths and serial killer success, May vowed to go back to the Haven to rile up the other faggots and queers and get Weaver fired. Fuck off, pig, and give me my goddamn phone call. So that's Hard Times. It's just a bunch of jokes with an ironic twist at the end, and it symbolically means how the LGBT community has gotten everything that they needed, and now they're trying to drum up all this crazy stuff to get more when it's not needed. And it's just, they're trying to cancel people now and just saying everyone's a homophobe and transphobe and racist. It's like they got their power, they got what they wanted, and now they want the world. And that's my take on it. That's my ironic twist at the end. So if you got to the end, now you know what Hard Times is really all about. A bunch of jokes with an irony twist at the end. Thank you very much, and I've got more in store for y'all. Thank you.